after the absolute chaos that happened in college football last week, we have a new AP poll.
It's like a totem pole that's like restacked.
Yep, that's how the poll works.
And
people were actually up in arms about it. There was a lot of conversation online about how they rank these teams. We can go back and forth about if it matters at all because they all play each other anyways.
Yeah,
that's kind of always
good point.
I mean, that's Ryan's stance for the
Every
last
time.
2 years in college football. Is we'd argue about it, and he goes, "Who cares? All these teams play each other." So I don't disagree with that. What I do think it matters for is when you
Hard Clemson, you manage your top motherfucking 10, baby. Woo!
Oh, thanks.
Go Tigers!
Thank you. Yeah, I was gonna talk about that later, but what I was, I almost forgot what I was saying.
Real
No,
Tigers. F you, Mario. All right.
Straights.
Do you want me to-
Straights.
Do you want me to finish?
Straight.
Continue,
Go ahead,
please.
Mike. Go ahead, Mike.
continue.
Texas number one. Go ahead, Mike.
Continue, please.
Go ahead.
How do you feel?
Hook 'em horns is my fucking show, baby.
Go ahead.
All right, no,
Talk,
it's up-
please.
no,
No,
up to
go.
you.
Mike, go.
Okay, so AP poll has been absolutely toppled over backwards and forwards. We got 3 Big Ten teams in the top 5, which is crazy. We got Ohio State, Penn State, and Oregon.
What are the ranks?
2, 3, and 4.
Do you want to
Who's ranked what?
Oh, okay, all right. Ohio State is 2. I think we got Oregon at 3, Penn State at 4. We
Wow.
got Georgia at 5.
Keep
and
going.
Texas at 1.
Keep
We
going.
got Bama at 6.
Oh,
No?
that's what they get.
All right.
Miami.
Miami at 6. But yeah, crazy week in AP.
Just crazy, right?
Yeah, crazy. Continue, please.
Jesus Christ. I mean, this guy.
Baton.
So you know how that old saying goes, act like you've been there before and you'll be there again?
Yeah.
You can tell that Texas hasn't been
they're way
good for
too
very
excited.
long in the last 15 years when they have to act like this whenever
I'm
they
sorry.
get put to number
You
one.
can
I
tell he's
can't
also
hear
not
you
been a
from
fan.
all the way
No.
down below.
Mike, you've
Can't
never
hear you.
you never
It
won
sounds
a,
like whispers.
you've never won a playoff game.
You stuck in the well, bitch. You're stuck in the well.
What? Well,
Someone get Tyler.
Oh, someone get the ladder. Someone call the fire department. Wee woo, wee woo.
Get him a
Hope
rope.
you're near a fire hydrant, bitch.
Wait, why would he need a
why
fire
would I need a
hydrant?
fire hydrant?
Tell him, Mike.
That's a good point. Oh, because the water and
You
the
can tell
rising.
not only has he not been a fan for
No,
long, but
because
he
he can fill
also
up the well with
didn't
water.
graduate
Yeah, the
from
well with
Texas.
You can
water.
swim up. You
Yep.
can swim
No
up.
education.
It's called physics, bitch.
Um, No, he knows what he's talking about. But yeah, they don't know what to do when they get ranked number 1. They just act irrationally, start being loud and saying noises. I mean, it's the same thing as last year. They go into the playoffs, it's all this
Says you.
talk.
I mean, it's his
They
first
lose
year
to-
being
they
a
lose
fan.
to a Washington
Yeah,
team.
give him a chance.
Give him
So
a
yeah,
chance.
Texas is number 1, and there are 3 Big Ten teams. What I was saying in the beginning was, while it doesn't matter really because these teams all play each other, it does matter in a post-mortem when you look back at the season
Oh,
for
100%,
strength of
yeah.
record, and they have these teams ranked really high, and it's like a big win, but they might have been ranked really high and they weren't really that good of a team.
Yep.
Like we can debate a whole lot about whether Miami's actually the 6th best team in the country after back-to-back weeks almost losing to unranked teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good
In
point.
the ACC.
I agree.
Or, what I would kind of want to talk about real quick also, we can go through any part of this poll, but Ohio State 2, Oregon 3, and Penn State 4. In my mind, there is no way Oregon and Penn State are the 3rd and 4th best teams in the country.
Completely agree.
Especially after what they've been doing the last couple of weeks. I mean, they've been winning games. I don't know if anyone thinks these teams are that fantastic. And maybe, granted, it is because everyone in the SEC has a loss.
Yeah.
But, they're playing games. Georgia lost in Bama at a night game by 1 score.
Mm-hmm.
Oregon's been, not covering against UCLA and just kind of floating around. And then Penn State doesn't play anyone. So I don't know. I get they all play games this week, but from your point of view, I wanted to know if you thought this was an accurate ranking or if you really think it doesn't matter.
No, well, I think this is an accurate ranking because of the losses. Tennessee has no reason to be above Penn State or Oregon. They've done nothing, and their loss was to a miserable team.
Yeah.
Ole Miss doesn't deserve to be over. Miami, in my opinion, hasn't played a team and has also almost lost to 2 teams that doesn't deserve. So, I think this is a very fair ranking. I love that they put Georgia ahead of Miami, too. I thought they were going to sneak in Bama, too, and make it really crazy, but because I don't trust this Miami team. But I think this rankings are perfect. I do think it'll matter huge for the teams that don't win the conference championship and the teams that are around that 10 to 14 zone, because your rankings that you lose to now are going to be so big.
But yeah,
where it finishes.
here's my one thing though, when you start talking about who deserves it, and I guess it has a lot to do with preseason rankings, which I hate. I hate teams being ranked in the preseason before they played a game because everything moves from that first ranking. But if you're saying Oregon, deserves to be over whoever it is, Georgia or Miami or whatever, let me just read you the games Oregon's played. They played Idaho, Boise State, Oregon State, UCLA, and Michigan State.
They won all those games and beat a ranked team.
They won. Correct. You look at BYU, for example. BYU went and won Southern Illinois, whatever, at SMU, won, who's currently an undefeated ACC team. Wyoming, which not a hard game. Then they beat 13th ranked Kansas State, and then at Baylor. So they have a more impressive record so far. Their undefeated season, they are number one in their conference. They're undefeated, and they beat multiple ranked teams, two of which were undefeated in their conference at the time. So, like, if we're talking about, like, oh, because they're undefeated, they deserve to be over these one-loss teams, I think you actually have to look at everyone, because teams like, Iowa State and BYU have actually had more impressive records than a
But
team
the
like
way
Oregon.
I see it is that BYU isn't going to have a path for the rest of their games. It's going to drastically change where they're at. Even if they win or lose, they could hang around that spot. No matter what, Penn State and Oregon are going to drastically go down because they all have to play Ohio State, Michigan.
But what I'm saying is they won't go down a lot because they already put them at 3. They lose to the 2-seed Ohio State. They're just going to put Oregon at like 7 or 8.
No, but then they have to play the other Michigan, Indiana.
I don't think
whoever.
Penn State and Oregon play each other.
No, they don't.
Well, then they only play teams ranked 20 and below.
But still difficult games.
I mean, BYU's doing the same thing.
But I personally think the conference, we were joking about the Big 12 conference, is nowhere near the SEC.
I agree,
a
but
Big
Oregon
10
just
conference.
hasn't played those games yet. So that's my problem with the current rankings.
I think that-
is that's like if you're looking at, hey, because they're undefeated they should be here.
Yeah.
Then I think you should take all undefeated teams and see who has the most impressive wins.
I really think the issue is this. It derives from the preseason rankings.
That's what I was saying.
When you get ranked preseason out of 10, and then a bunch of tough teams lose some tough games,
Then they just slide you
and
up.
then you have no choice. Like from where they started, Oregon and Penn State makes complete sense why they are where they are.
Yes.
The thing is, and I get your point though. Like, are they really? Is Oregon really the third best team in the country? No, they're not. But you can't really move them down. They kind of have to be around that 3-4 spot because of their preseason ranking.
Yeah.
If no team was ranked preseason and then everything was based off of games, and then like an AP poll came out like week 2, then
Yeah,
I think you'd see a little
35.
bit different of a.
And this
ranking.
is something to say also that the AP poll really does mean nothing for college football playoff selection because those polls don't start till I think week 9 or 10 or something. They don't start, so they wait to rank teams until 9
Yeah.
weeks or 10 weeks in the season, which I think is the right way to do it. But yeah, it caught me the kind of a weird way here. Just like looking at it, Georgia at 5 above Alabama at 7 too. I don't know if anyone had
That's
a certain
absurd.
type of
That's-
feeling about it. They both have one loss, and Georgia's loss was the head-to-head.
Yeah.
And Georgia's ranked ahead of them. So I actually agree with it, but I know for a fact you
It's
don't.
absurd. The most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The only best test of any game, I don't care what the hell. If you have the same record, the best test is how you played head-to-head.
Yeah.
One of them won. And they've done it. They've done it correctly for a college football playoff poll for even one of those 4 teams. Every single year, they've ranked it correctly every single
If
year.
you do the head-to-head, yeah.
Even with it was the Texas Bama last year or whatever
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah.
Like they did it every single year. They've done it correctly. They're not. I hope they don't change it this year when they start doing the actual.
I don't
playoff
think they will.
things.
College football playoffs pretty good at it. But yeah, my pushback to that, I agree with you at the end of the day. But I get their logic because I think they're doing the same thing where they're not comparing teams yet because it's not the playoffs.
Yeah.
They're just ranking them like on a list based on like points that you score.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the strength of record, i.e., you look at the games they lost. Georgia was a night game in Bama.
Yeah, Georgia had a better loss.
Georgia had a better loss,
Exactly,
even
that's
though
what
it
it
was
is, yeah.
head to head.
Yeah.
And
No, I
then
understand
Bama's
that,
loss
but
was to
to me,
unranked
it doesn't.
Vanderbilt.
It doesn't matter at all.
Yeah.
I
Like,
think
I'm just
I think when you get to college football playoff rankings,
They'll keep.
The-
if
the-
it's
that's
the same,
it.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
what I
and-
think is the committee looks at every game they have for the rest of the schedule and helps themselves out with these rankings. I've always thought.
well,
that.
that's kind of my issue with why they have all these Big Ten teams ranked up there because they're going to start like when they end up playing each other, they're not going to drop that far.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. Anyone who's watched Penn State, maybe I'm just tripping balls here.
I still
but
think Penn State's
Penn
good.
State
I mean,
is.
what has Tennessee done that's been amazing? What has Ole Miss done that's been amazing?
No, it's just like the eye test. Like when I watch these teams, I'm not impressed. I haven't been impressed at all with Oregon or Penn State, and I have a big bet on Oregon to make the college football playoffs.
I mean,
so
Penn State also-
I don't get me wrong. Being the way I'm talking about Oregon being 3, you'd think I didn't like them or had a bet on them not to make the playoffs. I have a massive wager on Oregon to make the college football playoffs. So just that being said, I think the SEC this year is kind of being the opposite of what people have been complaining about forever. People used to always say the SEC was overrated. Like because like all these teams were just graded so high, they're so much better that like a 2 or 3 loss SEC team would still be in college football playoff contention when like a 1 loss team from another conference wouldn't be. But I think this year, because there's a lot of really good SEC teams, they all have 1 loss and they're just rewarding teams who haven't played anyone yet. And I don't know if that's necessarily fair. Like if you look at Miami, they don't play anyone the entire year. They play no one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't have one ranked game the rest of their schedule.
That's why I think they're ranked 6.
Yeah, and
That's
it's kind of
crazy.
nuts. Like,
That is
they
crazy.
can just, they can just
Walk
walk to a
into
college
the-
football playoff
Yep.
when there'll be teams like Tennessee that has to go play Bama. They have to go play, LSU, A&M, like all these hard schools.
No,
Miami's
yeah.
like hardest game is Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
Or just, I don't know. It's kind of interesting there. And then, Clemson, like Mike mentioned earlier,
Number
back
10.
in the top 10, baby. This is a team, especially with the
Dark
SEC
horse.
moving around, huge dark horse. A really interesting scenario, actually, in the ACC that Ryan and I were talking about
Oh, God.
is the first time in college football history a team can go undefeated in conference play and not make the conference championship. And it's in the ACC this season. SMU, Clemson, and Miami, none of them play each other. They are all at least 3-point favorites in every game they'll play the rest of the season, and they're all currently undefeated. So they are all favorites to go undefeated for the rest of the year. One of them will not be able to make the playoffs, and the tiebreaker goes to the non-common opponents' records. So whoever plays essentially the two harder schedules gets in, and Clemson, as of now, has the easiest of that compared to SMU and Miami. So if
It's electric.
if things stay how they are and they go undefeated, there
SMU
is a
versus
scenario where
Miami.
Clemson could not make the college football
Wow.
or the AC championship going undefeated in ACC play.
SMU, baby. I think I think it's going to be SMU versus Clemson, personally speaking. But
Yeah, there's a really interesting scenario going on in the ACC because that's kind of crazy. That's what happens when you get rid of divisions, right?
Yeah.
These teams don't have to play each other. There's some weird, and also what happens when you make conferences 16 teams
Yeah,
instead of 8, 10, 12 teams where you physically can't play everyone.
Yeah.
But Clemson being in the top 10 right now, especially with the way we're playing, we don't have an extremely tough rest of our schedule either. I mean, we have a game against Louisville. Florida State was supposed to be the tough one. And we have a couple like testy games against like a Syracuse and Cal or whatever, but they're not. I think we'll handle those. So, regardless if we're undefeated in ACC play, we're going to make the college football playoffs. And I think based on the rest of the schedule and the way they're moving SEC teams down for losing, decent chance Clemson ends, I think, top 6 in AP poll at the end of the season.
if they win the ACC championship, yeah.
I think even like before that. Miami will be undefeated, and I think Miami and Clemson could be 5 and 6 right there.
Jesus Christ.
Wow.
It's just what happens. I mean, like, they're going to have 2-loss SEC teams, like, out the ass. Every SEC team is going to be fucking 1 and 2 loss, and then you're going to have undefeated big.
No, it's going to get crazy at the end of the year. Because then we're not even talking about, like, the Notre Dames, the other Power 5, the other Big 12s, the
Yeah.
other...
Yeah.
That's
No
a good
Boise
point.
States.
That's a good point. I mean, you look at Notre Dame, they're tied with Iowa State at 11 right now. Notre Dame's schedule the rest of the year is, okay, don't get me wrong, they play Navy, and I think that's going to be upset of the year, all in max bet. But Notre Dame's rest of their schedule, they don't have a ranked game. They do Stanford, Georgia
bullshit.
Tech, Navy. They're going to lose to Navy. Florida State, Virginia, Army, USC. So preseason, Florida State was supposed to be a top 10 team.
Don't
USC
sleep on
was
Georgia
ranked top
Tech,
10. Yeah, Georgia. I don't think they run the table because I think they lose to Navy and they might drop on at USC or something. But if you're throwing Notre Dame in the college football playoff, we don't have to get into it now.
Oh,
We can probably
God.
talk about it later in
Please
the
no.
season. But we started mapping out who's in and who's out because there's 2 undefeated Big 12 teams right now.
Yeah.
Neither of those is Kansas State. And Kansas State's probably the best team in that conference.
Yeah.
They have
BYU.
3 Big 10 teams in the top 4. And then you have 3 teams in the ACC who are currently undefeated in ACC play, and none of them play each other. Clemson and Miami both in the top 10 right now. You might get to a spot, we were saying preseason maybe like 5 or 6 SEC teams. You start doing the math. If Notre Dame's in there with 1 loss, there might be 3 or 4 SEC teams.
Notre Dame needs to get a goddamn conference. It makes them so hard to, like,
Facts.
schedule, like, or put them in the playoffs for when it's going to be 12 or more. Like,
So
it's going to be
good.
ridiculous.
Yeah, it's
you
hard to-
have to put them in.
It's hard to pin
they're
them
gonna
down.
be
So
in-
good for
they're
them
gonna be in-
financially, though.
Oh, and they're an auto bid.
I'm
If
saying
Notre
they
Dame
would-
schedules 1 hard game a year and just loses it, they're in.
Yeah, I know, I agree. It's
They're
ridiculous.
just fucking in.
Stupidest thing I've
It's
ever
crazy.
seen.
They
Like,
play no one and then just throw to Georgia. It doesn't matter if you lose.
Yeah.
oh, the one thing, and so here's the thing with Notre Dame, and then we can kind of keep moving. But they did win in A&M. So
week
A&M,
one.
But it was week 1.
I agree, but I'm saying their loss was to Northern Illinois, which we all know was disgusting.
Good
and all
night.
that. But when at the end of the year, they're gonna put all the 1-loss teams together, and they're gonna say your strongest win. And A&M's gonna be one of those teams that's already undefeated in the SEC. They're gonna have 1 or 2 losses, and they're gonna rank that win really high and put Notre Dame in over like a 1-loss Iowa State, or like a 1-loss BYU, or like
Could
a
see
one
that.
loss Miami or something like that. I don't know. Something's gonna happen along those
Ridiculous.
lines.
It's gonna be crazy. So people are gonna be so mad at the end of the year. Like so many fan bases are gonna lose their
Yeah,
shit.
everyone was like, "Oh, 12 teams, it's more inclusive.
No,
like
it's
it's gonna
gonna
be
be
super
terrible.
easy to pick." And you start looking at the rankings this year, you start shaking your head like, "Motherfucker."
It gives more people hope. Like when there was only 4 teams, like
The BYU never thought.
yeah, BYU's like okay, whatever. Like yeah, it's gonna be Georgia, Bama,
I
Ohio
know.
State,
The
Texas.
team that benefits the most from this is Boise State.
Oh,
They don't give a
explode.
about what's going on. They get one auto bid at the 5 seed for a non-power 4 team.
Get a
Boise State
Heisman winner?
hand off the ball 30 times a game, just walk into the college football playoffs. It's
Love
gonna-
it.
And then play the 12 seed
I
that's
love
coming
it.
in.
No, I love it.
I mean,
Electric.
here we go. But yeah, no, these rankings are pretty awesome. Texas, congratulations. I mean, you look at the guys up here, the 1 seed, the 13 seed, the 10 seed, and the 2 seed.
We're doing well.
So all our
pretty
teams
good.
are in the mix.
Pretty good,
It's
baby.
kind of fun. It's kind of
we
fun.
might see each other playing each other in the college football playoff. You know
Oh,
what I mean?
we'd have to go to the game.
Oh, we'd have to. Are you
We'd
kidding
have
me?
to go.
I mean, you and I might be seeing each other in the Natty.
That would be incredible. That'd be the greatest
how about,
TJ.
hey, how about you win a fucking playoff?
Yeah,
game
yeah, I
first?
could say that. I've
Texas,
done-
dude, I
I've
swear to
done
God.
all
How about you win your fucking conference?
How about you win your
Yeah.
conference?
What do you mean?
Yeah,
how about-
yeah.
We won our
We've-
conference last year.
We've won our conference
did.
like
Okay, that doesn't
14
mean
of the last 16 years.
what does last year mean? If you
Yeah,
want to talk
I-
past years, you guys couldn't fucking
We
win
have
a
2
playoff game.
national
You have not won
championships.
anything.
We have
No,
2 national
No,
championships.
okay, all right.
You've
Mike
never
just
won a
brings up
playoff
the gun.
game.
Whoa, this
You've
didn't
never
become-
been to a national championship
He's
since the
never-
college football playoff was
This guy.
invented.
Yo, this
He
can't
brings
be-
out the gun, has no bullets in the chamber every
Man.
time.
Yeah, he starts pointing
Yeah,
that
but there's
shit.
nothing
You
in
better
it.
come prepared. I mean, have you won a national championship?
Yes.
Have you won a playoff game?
Of course, championship.
Oh, you have won a natty. I forgot
First
Zeke
one,
was in
baby.
there. First one. That was way before he started watching college
Oh,
football,
yeah.
though, so I don't know if he can go
We were
back
also
that
in the
far.
championship with Bama a couple years ago. If that makes you feel
And we've
better
won
also.
2 and been in 3 or 4. I actually don't even remember. I think we've been in 3. I think our only loss was to LSU.
Yeah.
But,
okay.
What?
Mike, you've never lost.
You've never lost a championship,
You've
Mike.
never lost a championship.
That is one thing Mike has never done is lost a championship game.
Bow down.
So that's pretty f***ing impressive if
I
you look
hate
at
you
it.
all.
I mean,
When he was a
100%.
Penn State fan, they were never in the playoffs, so he never had to worry about that.
Never
And then
a
when he
State
switched
fan.
to Texas, they've also never been in a
I know.
championship game.
It's crazy.
So you're undefeated. You got that going for you.
Yeah.
And
All right.
both of his teams are in the top 4.
Oh yeah,
That's
Good.
fucking crazy.
It's
I mean,
huge
he's
for you.
honestly the
The
sharpest
one
one
and four
I know
around.
you're
What's
sharp.
my other one?
Penn State.
Penn State
Oh,
and
right.
Texas. 1 and
two
2
teams.
teams.
You have 1 and 4.
Your first love and your second love.
First love, second love.
If neither of
Saquon.
your 2 teams win a natty this year, that I mean,
Could you imagine?
Oh, they're upset.
It'd be like the fantasy team. It's all hopes, no
Cut.
dreams.
yeah, okay.
Now he wants to cut.
Yeah, now
Well, all
he
right,
wants
yeah.
to.
I mean, we're
Oh,
gonna keep
God.
talking college football all season. Absolutely electric. Texas is number 1 though, so we got to hand over the props where it's due. Red River Showdown this week. College
baby.
football is going
Red
to be
River
fucking
murder.
electric.